Hi there and welcome back to the series on creating a Laravel Voyager financial website. In the previous video, we managed to install a stable version of Voyager that is compatible with our Laravel framework version, which is Laravel version 10.10 or Laravel version 10. And in terms of the version for Voyager, we had the ability of installing a Voyager version which is 1.7, and we also successfully set up our admin dashboard. We created an admin user for our admin dashboard, which is this, and by default we had roles assigned to this admin user by our Voyager admin functionalities. So we also went through the default menu items that are always created on the admin dashboard, and we went through the roles that are generated for us by default with some dummy data regarding the administrator role and then the normal user role. Then for each role we saw some permissions that were assigned automatically there. Then we also looked at the UI display for the user, and we also realized that we had the ability of creating new users, and we also went through the media manager for Voyager, which is used to keep track of all images, videos, all media types that are going to be used within the system. And I also took you through the tools, for example the menu builder. Then we also looked at some of the campus features or the campus resources, where we saw that Laravel Voyager provides us with icons, and these are always Voyager icons in terms of the classes. Then we also looked at the commands that can be executed and also the feature for the logs, basing on what exact error we are having at that point of time. And for example, now you can see that I was trying to make use of the Voyager make command, which is actually not defined. So that is one of the features. Then the main feature as well was the database, where we saw that you can always have the ability of creating tables within the database. And we also looked at some of the parts of the settings. So that was pretty much it. Now in this video, we are mainly going to focus on creating migration tables and models for our identified entities for the project. So we are going to make use of our entity relationship diagram, and we shall of course ensure that we are following up a guide in terms of the pages, such that we do not get lost along the way. So with that shared, I'm going to start creating the migration files by starting with information from the home page, such that the data will be dynamically added with the admin dashboard, and therefore we can get started on that. So in the other previous videos, we worked on the ERD diagram, and this is what we managed to achieve. So in terms of Voyager, you always have the ability of creating tables by using the database tool. And when you create a table, it can always help you to also create a model. But I personally do not like this approach, because there are cases whereby you would want to maybe make updates or make better modifications on a database. For example, like rolling back or rerunning all the migration files at some point of time, and this database tool will not be that helpful, regardless of the fact that it keeps track of the tables. So I believe that it's always better to work with the Laravel migrations. And in terms of the Laravel migrations, these are always files that help us to define the structure of tables that are going to be stored within the database. So I believe for scalability purposes, the approach of working with migration files is much more better compared to when you work with the interface directly. So now we are going to go ahead and create a migration file for the hero sections. And in terms of migrations, Laravel always provides the PHP artisan migrate main command that we can always make use of. But with the fact that we're also going to create models, and one thing that you have to keep in mind, Laravel provides eloquent models. So let me check out one of the models that we do have. You have to take note of the fact that Laravel always provides eloquent models, and these are eloquent models because they are built on top of an object relational mapper, meaning that we always do not have to directly work with SQL, but with the object relational mapper, it creates for us an abstraction in that you can work with a migration file that is going to define the structure of the table, and within the model you can always have the ability of defining the attributes for the model, and also we always have the ability of customizing the table name, as we are going to see along the way. And with Laravel models, we always work with a fillable attribute, and this caters for mass assignment to ensure that data is always protected and can be submitted for cases whereby we are going to work with forms. So Laravel models are always represented as PHP classes, and most of the models do inherit from the model class, as we are going to see. Unlike this user model that is inheriting from the TCG Voyager models, but most of the models do inherit from the model class. And with the migration file, it will always avoid cases of us manually editing the database. So with that shared, we can now go ahead and create both a migration file and a model. And in Laravel, we can create both of them at the same time by working with the PHP artisan, then make model. So most of the times you can have the ability of creating a migration alone, and you can also have the ability of making a model alone. For example, if I type PHP artisan make model, then if it is a test model, I go ahead and press enter. So it has created for us a test model, and you can see that the model has been created and it inherits from the model class. So class test extends models, meaning that it always inherits other methods and maybe some other properties from the parent model class. So you can always also have the ability of creating a migration file as well by typing PHP artisan make, then instead of model you make a migration, then you go ahead and pass in the name of the migration file. So for example, create tests table. So the name of the migration file must always point to the type of table that you want to create, and also to the action. Since we are creating a table, you ensure that you say create, then the name of the table, then you summarize it up with the table, then you press enter. So when you right click, you can see that it has also created for us a new migration file. And in terms of the migration files, we always have a method for the up and a method for the down, meaning that if we wanted to create this table in the database, this is the function that is going to be called. And if we wanted to drop the table, this is that function that will always be used, or to reverse the migration. So I always prefer creating all these migrations and models at the same time. So therefore, I can go ahead and delete this, since it was just purposes of creating a simple demo for you. And having done that, can try to zoom out a little so that now we go ahead and create our hero section, migration table, and the model. So to create both of them at the same time, we type PHP artisan make model, and then we pass this in with the model name. So models are always classes, and any class in terms of the object-oriented paradigm starts with a capital letter. And most of the times we work with the Pascal naming convention, whereby each first letter in each word must start with a capital letter. So hero section has 2 words, so that means that this is going to be hero, then section. So you can see that the H is capital, and same applies to the S. So now the fact that you also want to create a migration file for this module at once, we provide a flag or an option which is -m. So the M stands for the migration in this context, then you press enter. So the output you can see in the terminal is that we have successfully created a model for the hero section and a migration file for the hero section as well. So our main focus is going to be on the migration file, but still we're also going to make use of the model. So migration files always extend or inherit from the migration class, and like I had said, we always have a public function app which is used to now add the table within the database, and then you also have the down function which is always used to drop the table just in case we wanted to have it dropped, or to maybe reverse a migration. That is the function that is always going to be used. Now in terms of the migration files within the app function, that is where we define the structure of the table, and we always work with the schema class, and the schema class always has a create function which always passes in the name of the table, and then a callback function that is now going to be used to define the columns or the attributes for each table. And it always takes in a parameter for the table, in that it's inheriting from a blueprint class that is always used to create the table attributes. And by default, each schema definition provides an ID which is always going to act as a primary key to uniquely identify each table. And we also have timestamps where we have additional attributes for the created data and the updated data. But in case you do not want to keep track of this, you can always delete. So with that shared, you can now go ahead and add attributes for our hero section. And it's better if we keep track, we make use of our ERD. So this is going to be the title. We are going to have the title, which is a string. Then it's going to be unique, and it's not now. So we always access the variable table, and we are now going to define a column for the title. So we always first define the data type, which is a string format because of the virtue. And you can see that it expects the column name, then the length in terms of the parameters. And since we have defined a string type, it must be a string. So this is going to be a title. Then the length we can maybe pass in 255, and since the string is going to be required, then this is okay. But we have also added a constraint for the title such that each title is going to be unique. So we add a unique constraint by accessing the unique function. Then having added that, we go ahead and terminate and add a semicolon. Then we have the description, then the type. So you can always copy this and make use of it very fast. Then the description. Now the description can actually be a text because it might have more than this sometimes. So instead of the string, we do have text. And when you hover on this function, it expects one argument for the column. So this is going to have a description, and the description constraint for unique is not required, and then the description. So whenever an attribute or whenever a column or a field is going to be required in terms of Laravel, if you do not pass on a nullable property by, for example, saying this is going to be nullable, then that means that by default it is going to be a required property. So if we are not passing this function, if we are not calling it, then that means that the description will be required when we create a new hero section. Then we also have the type. And when you look at our ERD, the type is a string. So, and the type is also unique and not null. So what we can do, we can have this updated to the type, and instead of text, this is going to have a string type. Then we can pass in validations, or sometimes they can default to this match, and each type is going to be unique, and that is okay. Then we also have the button text, and you can see that the button text can be nullable. So shall have the button text. So since the button text can be optional, we can call on the nullable function, and whenever we call on the nullable function, it means that the value for the button text will have the ability of being null, and this is a string. So in terms of SQL, the data types for example strings are going to have a variable, a varchar, a variable character, but in Laravel we work with the string function if we are working with the schema definition. Then you also have the background image for each hero section. So the hero sections are more like the banners that are going to be displayed at the top, just next to the navigation bar, for any of the page that is going to have a hero section. So that means that we can have a hero section for maybe for the about us, or maybe for the accounts page, or for the contact us page. That is why I'm passing in a type. So we, instead of the description, we have the background image, and the background image must not be null, so we can keep that there. So I think that is it. We have defined all these, and I believe that, and I think it's better for every entity that is complete, we can turn it to green, such that we know how much we are left with. So having worked on the migration file, we can now go ahead and migrate this table into the database. So now, when you look at the database, we do not have the hero sections table, and mind you, in terms of PHP-MyAdmin, the tables are always organized in terms of ascending order, alphabetically. So you can just see that we do not have the hero sections there. So if you're to migrate any table into the database, you type php _migrate. That is if you want to make migrations generally, because there are some times whereby we also pass in a name of a migration file that can be migrated, but we can already see that later. So for now we can just run that, and for any successful migration you always have this kind of information: migrated this much. So it will always display the file that has been migrated, and you can see that this is the file, keeping note of the fact that the migrations are already stored in the migrations folder that is stored within the database folder. So after that, we can have the ability of refreshing the database. And now when I refresh the database, you can see that the hero sections have been automatically migrated, and you always have the ability of clicking on the structure, and this is okay. You can see that we do have a unique constraint there. Our primary key has been added, and it's going to be auto incremented, and it is going to be unassigned, meaning that we must only store positive values, not negative values. Then we have a type that is also unique. Then the background image, which is not nullable, but then the button text can be null. That is why you see that we have a yes for that field. And that is pretty much it in terms of the migration file. So whenever the table has been migrated successfully, or if the table has been created within the database, that means that the migration file was successful. All you have to do is to go through it and ensure that the structure is the structure that you defined in your ERD, or is the structure that you expect. So having created that, we can now go ahead and also work on our model for the hero section. Now with the hero section model, the attributes that we define for the table are the same attributes that must be used in the model. Now, since we are going to be fetching this data from the hero section onto our web pages, we therefore have to ensure that we define attributes for this model. And in terms of Laravel, we always make use of the fillable variable, and it always stores a list of the strings. It always stores a list of field strings that have been defined for this table. So remember that the model also points to the table that we are going to use for the hero section. So it's going to keep track of the fields or the columns or the attributes that we are going to use. And we had defined the title. Then we also have the description. Then we also have the type. Then we also defined the button text. Then we also had the background image. So having defined that, you add the semicolons because this is the syntax in terms of PHP. And we also need an access modifier, so the fillable property is always protected, and that is why we're having that error. So having added that, then this is all we have to do regarding the model. So the fillable property is just used for mass assignment, just to add a simple comment. That is if we are going to be working with forms, and we shall also use this data within our live wire while we are fetching it from the database. So that is it. Now that we have both the migration file and the model, we can now go ahead and work on our admin dashboard. So in the admin dashboard, when you refresh, you always see tables that have been migrated successfully, and of course I do have these for testing, but we can have this deleted. Then we also have this other for testing too, can have it deleted. Now the hero sections table is here, and it has already been migrated. So you see that with Voyager, once a table has been successfully migrated, it's also going to be replicated this side, and all the fields that we shall have defined in our database are also going to be updated here. So these are the fields that we did define, and you always have the ability of editing. But now the problem with this, we shall have the ability of editing the database, but now our migration files will not be updated. So it is always better to stick to the migration file, that is if you wanted to make changes, unless otherwise, but the other approach is far better than this. Now, when you look at our menu, we do not have the hero sections here. This is because of the fact that we haven't yet added the bread functionalities to the hero section. So bread is the ability for us to browse the content in the hero section, ability for us to read, edit, add and delete, and also ensure that that item can be added here onto the menu. So you just click on add bread to this table, and then we shall be redirected to this page. So create bread for the hero sections table. We do not have to make changes on the table name. Then the display name, which is of type singular, is this, which is okay. Then in pro format, which is okay. Then we do not have to make updates on the URL slug. Then you always have the ability of adding icons that of course must be working with Voyager. So if I open this up, hero sections, for example, if we just keep something simple for now, like maybe Voyager bag, so you can copy this and paste it here. So Voyager, just like these other frameworks like Bootstrap, Tailwind, CSS, work with classes in terms of the font icons. Of course, not styling, but just adding the font icons. Now we always have to update the model for this table, and in terms of Laravel, you can see that by default our namespace is always up/models. So you ensure that you stick to that namespace. So this is going to be up/models, then a backslash, then the model that we have already defined. Then apparently we do not have a controller, so we can keep that nullable. And then policies, not for now. Then generate permissions, that is true, since we are going to work with maybe a number of roles. Now we can always add server-side pagination, which is okay. Then in terms of ordering, you can always choose whatever you want. In case you wanted to add server-side searching functionalities, you can always add these. So most of these are always related with data tables. That is if you want pagination, searching abilities, filtering, and etc. Then you can also add a description, and the main other part is editing the rows. So you see that by default we do not have visibility functionalities for an ID, but you can see that it is required. But the input type of the ID is always a number and not a text type, so you can have that applied there. Then the title is going to be text, which is okay. Then the description is going to be text, which is okay. Then we also need a type. Now the type can come in later, or we can always add types in here such that we have a drop down. So for now we can keep it precise, but we are going to have types based on the pages that we are going to have. So that means that we can always update this later such that it is a drop down. Then the button text is going to be text. Now we have the background image. Background image must be an image, so you must ensure that that is updated, and it's going to be required, so this is yes. Then the created timestamps and then updated that is okay. So since this hero section does not have any relationship, we can just submit. Yes, so when we do have bread, you can see that the buttons for browsing, editing, and deleting are added there automatically. So when we do browse, we are always redirected to a table. where we can have the ability of adding and also looking at the content that we do have. So when you also try to refresh, I think it's always done automatically, they are here. You can see that we have the hero sections as well on the menu. So if we try to test, for example, by adding a simple hero section for maybe the about us. So if I add about us, then a simple description for now, for purposes of testing, something like financial site, and then the type, as of now we don't have a drop down, so we can just keep this to maybe a type for the about, a type for the about us, and then the button text is optional, but we do need an image. Now we can get some simple background image because I don't have images locally, so I can just search, so I can just check out for some black background images. Yeah, so for example, if I choose to work with this image, I will go ahead and download it, and this is freepik.com. So I do want a JPEG format. Then I don't think I have to remove the background, so this is okay. So as it's downloading, you can also look at the drop down so that we add the types right now. Now when you check out Voyager, the Voyager documentation, we always have the form fields, and regarding the form fields you can always check out the drop down. And now they're telling us that when specifying that an input type should be a drop down, you will need to specify the values of that drop down. So in the JSON above, you can specify the default value of the drop down if it does not have a value. Then additionally, in the options object, you can always specify the value of the option on the left, the value of the option on the left, and the text will be displayed on the right. So we can copy this and now go back to our bread section. And in our bread section, we did have bread for the hero section, so we can first of all edit it. So if you are to update the type, the first thing you have to do is to update this to a drop down. You select drop down, and then the option value here in the JSON, you can copy this. So the default value can equate to about us, and we can have this again populated for the option. My bad. So this is going to be about us. Then the text that is going to be displayed is about us page. Can keep this okay, about us page. Then we can have this copied and reused here. So we shall have one as well for maybe the contact us, such that this has a value for contact us page. Then we can also go ahead and add the one for savings page. So this is going to be savings. Then instead of contact us, this is going to be savings page. Then you shall also have that. For now, I'm not adding the home because on the home page we are going to have some cursor images. so that is why I'm leaving that out. So after savings, we shall also have loans, and this is going to have the loans page. So I can also have these updated to that of maybe the finance literacy, or actually financial literacy. Then we shall have other for financial literacy. So financial literacy page. So for now this is okay, we can always update. So I'll remove the comma. So once that is done, we can now go ahead and submit. So once that has been submitted, that means that when we make a refresh on this form, we must see the drop down there, and now you can see that the drop down has been added automatically, and it also has the select to part of it, in that you can search automatically and access a simple item. So let's add this data very fast. Then the description, financial site for now. Then this is going to be of about us. Then of course we need the image. And now for the image, I can drag and drop this image from FreePic. Then we click on save. So I think the image is very large. Okay, so now what we can do, we can maybe work with Pixabay. Then I can select the background images. So I'm going to just make use of this simple image for now, and we can save it up very fast. Then we did have an exception where here, so I'll go back here and update the image, then click on save. Yeah, so now you can see that the hero section has been created. So you can now see that the data for the hero section has been added, but the background image is not displayed, but we can handle this. And we also have the ability of viewing, so we shall handle the case of displaying the images later. Then we can also delete, and you can see that everything has been deleted as of now. So to summarize this up, we can access the menu builder, and we can access the builder for the admin, and within the builder for the admin we can create a new menu item, and the title is going to be the home page. Then in terms of the icons, we can first access the campus so that we look at the icons that do exist for home. Then when I search, you see that we have Voyager home, so we can just copy that and make use of it here. Then we do not need anything else, so we can click on add. Once it has been added, with the menu builder you can always drag and drop, just like how other WordPress website builders do it. So after the user management, we can add our home page here, and we shall also bring the hero section here very fast. But now realize that the hero section is actually not going to be part of the home page, so we can just edit the home page to have general page content or general pages. Then we click on update. So once it has general pages, then you can bring the hero section here and also update the icon. Now if it is going to have something like general, we can look for a simple icon, maybe Voyager browser. So to edit this up, you click on that, Then we can paste the new class. Then we ensure that the hero section is part of the general pages, and when you open it up, you can see that the hero section is there. So having completed those tasks, we can now go ahead and push this to GitHub. So when you run a git status, go ahead and type git add to have this tracked. Then a git status is now going to show you that we can commit. So we shall go ahead and commit git commit -m. Then the commit message is always in line with the task that has been done. So therefore, this is going to be worked on hero sections, model, and migration files. So when that is done, we can now go ahead and push. So I'm going to just, oh my bad, I really need internet connection. So when you're done, you type a git push. So upon a successful push, when I right click, you can see that I have pushed this. And since I worked on the migrations file, you can see that we are having the migrations having a commit of worked on hero sections, model, and migrations. And then when I go to the app folder and then the models, you can see that the hero section model is also there. So that is pretty much it for this video. I hope it was very insightful. We managed to create a database for our hero section, and we also tried to add some data here for testing purposes. And we have also created a new menu item that is going to keep track of all the general pages content. And we also saw that Laravel Voyager automatically creates for us the UI and also the functionality in terms of the controller, adding, deleting. You can always update, you can always search. We also have the ability of working with pagination. So that is it for this video. I hope you liked it and I hope you learned something new. Thanks for watching and see you again in the next session.